students. Today, in my this video, I'm going to explain you the second chapter of your Hornbill book. The name of this chapter is "We Are Not Afraid to Die If We Can All Be Together." This chapter is written by Gordon Cook and Alan Eads. Let's talk about the chapters in I'm going to give you the introduction of this chapter. The chapter deals with the first person account of an adventurous ordeal that one family experiences. The author gives a brief about the voyage taken by his family to duplicate round the world voyage which was made 200 years earlier by Captain James Cook. Okay, the narrator also wanted to duplicate that world voyage. Okay, that 200 years earlier done by Captain James Cook. The author and his family had always dreamt of sailing in the British waters. In this chapter, you will study about the adventure and the struggle of this family during the voyage. Voyage, you mean a long journey involving travel by sea. The never accepting defeat attitude by all the family members is beautiful to learn. So let's talk about the characters. First of all, the main character is the narrator. He is a 7-year-old businessman. He wants to duplicate the world journey made by Captain James Cook 200 years earlier. He spends a long time improving his sea skills and finally begins his journey with his wife Mary, 6-year-old son Jonathan, and 7-year-old daughter Suzanne. Mary, second character, she is narrator's wife. She supports her husband's dream and improves her sea skills. She joins her husband on their planned 3-year voyage. Larry Vigil, a crewman, an American who joins the narrator and Mary at Cape Town to help them tackle one of the world's roughest seas, okay, Southern Indian Ocean. Herb Sigler, another crewman, a Swiss, okay, Larry Vigil, an American, and Herb Sigler, a Swiss crewman, who also joins them at Cape Town to help them cross the Southern Indian Ocean. Suzanne, narrator's 7-year-old daughter, who displays immense courage throughout their voyage. Jonathan, narrator's 6-year-old son, who shows immense strength and optimism even in difficult times. So these are the characters that are there that we will read in the story. Before explaining the summary of the story, I just want to show you the sail ship and its main parts. Okay. So, this is the sail ship. The main part of this ship is a main mast. This is a long pole, a tall pole that supports the sail on a boat or a ship. Okay, and the jib. A jib is a triangular sail that sets ahead of foremast of sailing vessels, used in storm to reduce the sail area to the minimum required for maintaining movability of the ship. Okay, stern. Stern is used to steer the boat. Okay, and hull is the main body of the ship or the boat. Okay, so these are some of the main parts of the sailboat or sail ship. So here, the summary of this chapter, I have divided the chapter, okay, into main points, 7 to 8 points, and one by one I will explain you. Okay, so first of all, the voyage begins. In July 1976, the narrator, a 37 years year-old businessman, his wife Mary, 6-year-old son Jonathan, and 7-year-old daughter Suzanne started their sea voyage from Plymouth, England. Okay, they started their sea voyage from Plymouth, England. They wished to go round the world on a long sea journey, just as Captain James Cook had done 200 years earlier. The narrator and his wife had spent 16 years preparing for the round the world voyage and improving their marine or sea skills. Their boat that was Waywalker. The name of their boat was Waywalker. Their boat, Waywalker, the name of their boat was Waywalker, was a 23 meter, 30-ton boat that was professionally built, and they had tested it in the roughest weather they could find. The first part of their planned 3 years journey passed pleasantly as they sailed down the west coast of Africa to Cape Town. Then they took two crewmen, the American Larry Vigil and the Swiss Herb Sigler. They took these two crewmen before heading east from Cape Town to help them tackle one of the world's roughest seas, the Southern Indian Ocean. Okay, now let's move to the second point. The problems begin during the voyage. On the second day out of Cape Town, they encountered strong winds and high waves. The windstorm continued for the next few weeks. The size of the waves was up to 15 meters. Okay, the size of the waves was up to 15 meters. On December 25, they were 3,500 kilometers east of Cape Town. But the weather was very bad. Despite the bad weather, they celebrated Christmas Day wonderfully. New Year's Day saw no improvement in the weather and it worsened with the passing of time. The weather deteriorated with passing time. On 2nd January, the waves were gigantic. The waves were huge. They were sailing with the small storm jib, but still they were going very fast. The boat moved to the top of each wave, but the gigantic waves and dangerous wind continued to terrorize them. Okay, these gigantic waves were dangerous and continued to terrorize them. To minimize the damage, they dropped the storm jib and lashed a heavy rope in a loop across the stern. Then they fastened everything, went through their life raft drill, attached lifelines, and put on oilskin and life jackets and prepared themselves for the worst case scenario. These are some of the steps taken by author and his family to face the storm. Okay, what they did to minimize the damage, firstly they dropped the storm jib. Okay, they lashed a heavy rope in a loop across the stern. Then they fastened everything. Okay, then they tied or fastened everything, went through their life drafts, their life raft drill, attached lifeline, and put on oilskin and life jackets and prepared themselves for the worst case scenario, for the worst waves, for the gigantic waves. Okay. Third point is disaster strikes. The first indication The first indication of impending disaster came at about 6 p.m. with an ominous silence. The wind stopped and the sky immediately grew dark. Then a loud roaring sound was heard. The narrator thought that he saw a cloud coming toward them. With horror, he realized it was not a cloud but the biggest wave that he had ever seen. It appeared vertical and double the height of all other waves. The wave hit the boat and a tremendous explosion shook the deck. Water poured into the boat. The narrator's head smashed against the steering wheel of the boat, and before he knew it, he was thrown into the sea. He thought that he was going to die, but suddenly his head popped out. His head popped out of the water. He saw that the boat had almost capsized. The boat has almost capsized by the water, by the wave. Suddenly, a wave hurled it upright, and the narrator was tossed onto the boat. Okay, his left ribs were cracked, his mouth was filled with blood, and some teeth were broken. Somehow he managed to find the wheel, lined up the stern for next wave, and hung on. Next point is frantic survival attempts. The narrator knew that the boat was flooding with water, but he dared not abandon the wheel to investigate. At that time he was steering the wheel continuously. Okay, he never dared to abandon the wheel to investigate. Suddenly, Mary came and informed him that the boat was sinking as the water was pouring in. Okay, then he handed the wheel to her wife and to his wife, Mary, and crawled toward the hatch. Larry and Herb pumped the water out like madmen. The wooden beams had broken. The whole starboard side had bulged inward. Cloth, clothes, crockery, charts, tins, and toys moved around noisily in water. Everything was floating in the water and floating with noise. The boat had been damaged. He somehow managed to reach the children. Sue, when he reached the children, he saw Sue had a big bump on her head, to which he did not pay much attention that time. He found a hammer, screw, and canvas. Somehow he managed to stretch the canvas and secure waterproof hatch covers across the gaping holes. Some water continued to come in, but most of it could be prevented from entering the boat with the help of water hatch. Canvas waterproof hatch. Okay, some water continued to come in, but most of it could be prevented from entering the boat, and it could be prevented by the waterproof hatch. But this was not the end of their troubles. Okay, next point, damaged and lost equipments. The hand pumps started jamming with the trash floating around the cabins. Okay, the hand pumps started jamming. Okay, with the trash floating around the cabins. Soon their electric pumps got circuited and the water rose threateningly. Then narrator found that their two spare hand pumps had been pulled away by current along with the forestay sail, the jib, the lifeboat, and the main anchor. He managed to find another electric pump to drain out the water. That night was endless, bitterly cold routine of pumping, steering, and working the radio. However, there was no response to their Mayday calls as they were in a remote corner of the world. Sue's head had swollen alarmingly. She had two black eyes and a deep cut on her arm. She didn't tell the narrator more of her injuries as she did not want to worry him when he was trying to save them all. And this shows the optimistic and courageous attitude of the children. Then the pinpricks in the vast ocean. Next point is pinpricks in the vast ocean. On the morning of January 3rd, the pumps had reduced the amount of water on board. Each of them took rest for 2 hours by turns. They had survived for 15 hours since the wave hit the wave walker, but the boat was not strong enough to take them to Australia. The narrator knew that the boat wouldn't hold together long enough. He checked his chart and calculated that the only one hope for them was if they could reach Isle Amsterdam, a French scientific base, one of the two pinpricks in the vast ocean. Mary found some corned beef and cracker biscuits, and they ate their first meal in almost 2 days. However, their relief was short lived. The weather again started deteriorating, and by the dawn on 5th January, their situation was again desperate. The next point is we are not afraid to die if we can all be together, courageous attitude shown by children. The narrator went to comfort the children. He tried to assure them that they were going to make it. John said that time that they were not afraid of dying if they can all be together. This gave the narrator hope and a reason to fight the sea. These words motivated the narrator. He tried his best to protect the weakened starboard side of the boat. However, later in the evening, as more water came into the boat, they felt defeated again. On 6th January, the weather improved. The narrator again tried to calculate their position. While he was at work, Sue, his daughter, came to him and she gave him a card. Okay, in the card, she had drawn caricatures of Mary and the narrator. This also shows the optimistic and the courageous attitude of the children. The card said that she loved them both and hoped for the best. The narrator was filled with optimism. Somehow they had to make it. Okay, the next and the last point of this summary, the most beautiful island in the world. Okay, they got victory after great struggle. The narrator made several calculations using a spare compass, made some adjustments, and asked Larry to steer a course of 185 degrees. He said that if they were lucky, they would see the island at about 5 p.m. Dejected, sad, he went down to his bunk and fell asleep. It was about 6 p.m. when he woke up. He thought that they had they must have missed the island. Just then Joan and Sue came to him and hug, gave him a warm hug because he was the best daddy in the world. The narrator was confused. Sue announced that the island was just in front of them. He rushed out to deck and saw the most beautiful island in the world. It was Isle Amsterdam, a piece of volcanic rock with little vegetation. When his feet touched the land the next day, he thought of the cheerfulness and optimism of all the people on the boat, which made them pass through the world's worst stress. Okay, he thanked everyone to supported him. Okay, so this is all about this. This is all about the summary of this chapter. We are not afraid to die. Okay, let's talk about the theme of this chapter. This story, We Are Not Afraid to Die, speak about the adventurous spirit of a family which is out on a voyage. You will witness a stream of unfortunate events that lead to a disaster for this family, leaving its dream of sailing. The story brings many emotions which helps you to understand the importance of bonding in a family, and you will see how each member of the family preserve to survive this deadly situation. In this story, all the characters are brave and love each other immensely. The surprise package is the kids who show great courage in such a difficult time and give moral support to their father who struggles to save everyone. This story represents how courage can help you overcome any situation. The story also shows the struggle of a father determined to save his family and leaves no stone unturned to bring the situation under control. Teamwork. This also shows the teamwork. It also brings the combined effort of each character to fight the situation. The little boy John Donne exhibit a great deal of courage and is also ready to die if all his family members are together. All that matter is that they are together. This also shows the unity that all the family members were united. Okay, the young girl Suzanne is seriously injured but chooses not to bother her father who is struggling to save everyone. This this entire story revolves around the family and their positive attitude which saved everyone. The whole family together and fights this situation with an indomitable spirit. This story shows unity. Okay, how unity might help you to overcome the toughest situation. Okay, so this is all about these are the themes of the chapter. Okay, adventurous spirit, positive attitude, unity, teamwork, all these things, all the emotions. Okay, we have seen in all the characters of this story. Okay, if you have any doubt, you can students, if you have any doubt, you can send me personal message. Okay, thank you and have a nice day.